Live.
We're live
Hi,
and in person.
welcome to
Fun
I
with
almost said fun with Glassline
paints.
Pens. Yeah, thanks. Well, thanks for joining us today. Sorry we're running a couple minutes late, but we did have a
Kaylee wasn't screw it up.
as always. There's always a couple technical issues.
It wasn't.
We wanted to be horizontal for you guys today, but the phone
Yeah,
did not
sorry,
want to
we
be.
could-
It was not Roy and our fault.
Yeah, like
our
a,
apologies.
It
like
was
it
not our
normally
fault
is.
like normal.
No, not this
But it'll be worth the wait, right?
Oh,
Sure.
absolutely.
Gosh. Yeah, this is good. This one's gonna be good.
Yeah, this is really
So,
good. I didn't get a piece of glass. Okay, that's okay.
we wanted to just talk to you guys. We ask every now and then for people have ideas about what sort of topics you'd like us to cover, and I think somebody asked this very thing, right? They asked us for the Glassline paints, and then we were like, oh yeah, I mean they seem kind of simple if you just think about just firing them in a kiln or doing whatever, but it's a little more than that, right? So
Right,
would
it
you agree?
is. And what it is just glass. It's just the paint that comes in these bottles in many different colors.
Lots of colors,
And
yeah.
it's already hydrated, so I mean it's liquid. But it holds up in the kiln, so it's a fired on situation. It's one of the ones that you can actually put on and take to a full fuse and create some detail with it. So that's really what we have as examples of the different ways of using them. So I don't know where to start because we have so many good examples.
Yeah, we got all kinds of examples, right? So
a couple of the girls, Izzy and Daisy,
yeah,
do a lot of the paintings. So we have a lot of their examples that are so cute. And
yeah. Izzy made these. I know Daisy made this one in the mushroom frog, which is nice, right? So
right.
Nice.
Yeah.
So what we're trying to just show you, there's different ways of approaching it. I mean, we'll talk a little bit more about it as we go. And of course, if you have any questions, you can make a comment in the video section below, or you can
send us a message on Facebook or Instagram. Yeah, I did it.
Val's learning to read.
I know.
That's good. or of course they could email us.
Well, right? I try to be way more stealth than you. You just stare at it and read it. So I mean,
you can email us at Facebook@delphiglass.com, and we do answer them, right? I mean, I know Kaylee gets them, and she always passes them to us, and we give our best answers on them. So, so the Glassline paints, if you're not familiar with them, they are a paint that needs to be fired in the kiln. In the description that I was told about them is that they are considered a low fire glaze. The company actually recommends that you fire these at 1500 degrees, which the hotter you go with the temperature, the shinier or glossier the paint's going to be. So we, in the fusing world, I know, especially here at Delphi, we don't usually go around 1500. I mean, to us, that's a little too hot. We don't always fire that hot. But so most of the stuff you'll see, I don't think any of it was fired at 1500.
Mine all are 1500.
Oh, were they 1500?
Yeah.
Oh,
so these, the Michigans, the Ghost and the Pumpkin, I just decided to do them all at 1500 because that's what they say is the gets the best. So, but then I've seen the ones that you guys have fired less hot still are very visually attractive.
Yeah,
and
I know.
Cute
I did this one, which is this one I know is just our normal full fuse for us here at Delphi. That's right, 1450 degrees. So I did that at 1450, and for the most part, I think it looks all right. I mean, right? It's not as dull as you might think. The color. I don't know. I'm trying to turn it so to see if you can see the.
I actually think it's pretty close to what my 1500 is.
Yeah, right. It's not a huge
honest.
Difference between that and the 1500.
So if you have a problem with whatever you're firing, you don't want to really go that
And then
hot.
Daisy, I know Daisy fires this one. If you see the cat here was fired at 1405 degrees. So right, just above 1400, because if you can see, she's firing on a single layer of glass. One of the things that Daisy likes to do is to incorporate it into stained glass, right? So you can see how this one's done. We also have the one behind Val is done by Daisy with the honeybee and honeycomb and stuff. That was comb flower.
Oh, sorry.
Those are good. Yeah. You zoom it back out.
And those are pretty nice, which is sort of like I have kind of laying out here in front of me was one that I was showing because we do. I mean, obviously it's made for fusing, but this is a project that I'm going to do into copper foil, right? So stained glass. And so I just painted this part of it, right? The leaves looking part of this, and then I'll foil it and solder it all together someday in my spare.
We'll see it next year for
fall. Right.
Something to look forward to.
I don't know about that.
Yeah, that's an optimistic, but maybe next year we'll get it back.
But I think, right, the point is that they're really more versatile than even than what you and I thought. I mean,
I agree.
We just never really use them that much, which is what's fun for us when people suggest things. You know, we've been around this product for years, and you know, I've used it. I think I told you I made a sign one time that said "shop vac" and plastered it on the wall just so people wouldn't accidentally leave it next to the kiln, because we had a situation like that one time. And you know, and it was just, I just used black and just shop back on this big piece of white. And, you know, so it's a really nice way to write as well, you know, so if you want to write a name or like I said too, with the, like doing the stained glass situation, I thought just how pretty I really actually liked this one on the green and thought, well, you know, you could do that and make 4 of them and that could be your border around your stained glass. And so, I mean, there's just lots of things. It doesn't have to be, you know, a definite shape or spend a lot of time coloring things. And because these take the girls, I mean, these are pretty
some
intricate.
of these take, they take a few minutes. So
this is mine. This is the way I roll. 2 eyes and a mouth. This is, but I did that to show you that it, you know, even you don't have to keep all colors of the rainbow, but if you have like black, white, red, and green, you know, maybe you're doing a piece and you just want some holly berries and you don't want to, you know, fire up some little squares of red or coarse frit to get balls. It just, you know, dot, dot, dot. I mean, and with the red, and those could be your holly berries. So it can be as, you know, advanced or as easy as you want to make it. It's really kind of versatile. So
to me, one of the nice things about working with the color line is that you're not really committed until you fire it in the kiln, right? So if you paint it on, you don't like how something looks, you can. What I've done often with an X-Acto knife is like clean up the lines by scraping the dry stuff off. So if you didn't paint it as neatly as you would have liked, you can clean up the lines, make them look a little bit better. Especially you know, if you see some of these, I'm not sure Daisy did that with this one. Probably not, because she's.
I think Izzy did it on the Delphi
She's
logo.
a little bit better than I am, but
Let's make those edges really sharp.
Yeah, it really makes it really nice and crisp. So that's it. These are water-based paints, so they're. We're going to squirt some out in a minute, just so you can kind of see what they look like and how they kind of work with. And when you buy them new, the bottle is sealed. This one isn't, but we are using these in the classroom. But usually there's a seal here on top that just helps keep it from drying up inside the bottle. But they do, once you've opened them up. I mean, this is one of the. I guess it's a negative is that they do dry up, right? Sometimes maybe faster than you might think. So. I know for us here when we're doing a class, the day before we just take a look at them and see which ones need to be reconstituted. But the nice thing is it just takes water. You just add a little bit of water to them. Usually we let that sit a little bit and just let the water kind of soak back into it, and then you just shake them back up, and you know they're ready to go. So yeah, I had this one here was that made me think of this one. Sorry, this one here was a mandala that I was doing a private class and these ladies wanted to paint mandalas on the glass, so they were using this. And what they did the entire time was just they were adjusting the paint to fit what they were trying to do. So they were doing it in a palette, so they have a palette, and then they would squirt this, you know, some paint on the glass, and then they would you add a little water if they wanted it wetter, because in order to get this reaction, what you do is you use tools kind of like these tools, and you dip into the paint, and then you just set down on the glass, and it makes a mark onto the glass, right? So I'll just do it real quick. Oh yeah, this one's really nice and wet. Right when you can hear them
when they're new.
Yeah, and then sometimes it also tells you like how watery they are. And if you mixed it too watery, just let it sit for a couple of days, right, and it'll start to dry up. So
you can pour off the excess.
Yeah, you can pour off the excess. So what you would do is this kind of a thing. And you dip in here, and then you come in, and you can dip in and make another dot, right? And then, so you can kind of continue your thing. When these dots dry, then you can put another dot on top of it, which is what, you know, you can see what's going on there. And then, you know, we use a hair dryer just to dry them up a little bit faster. So that's another thing too, is that, you know, for me, if I'm in a hurry, I'll use a hair dryer to dry them. But if they're wet like this, I would just put it in the kiln. I put them in the kiln, but. I don't think you're
if you don't have to, well, I don't think you're supposed to either, as long as you're not. But if you are going to add to it, you'll do yourself a favor by letting it dry a little bit, because they'll just bleed together. And so if you're trying to.
Or that could be you're going for.
Absolutely.
Right, you can do wet on wet. Yeah, that's actually good. It's kind of fun. Which also reminds me, they're mixable. So the colors are mixable. So if you want to, transition from, you're going like, I have these 3 kind of fall looking colors, right? If I wanted to transition between them a little bit more, you can either squirt them on the glass and paint them that way, or you can mix them on a palette, the colors, and then paint them that way. So they're, in that regard, I find them really, really versatile.
Yeah, I did that with my blues. I mixed them on a palette and for the lakes. Yeah. So, and the other thing we didn't mention too, but I brought this just because, this kind of shows. Can you see it? Okay. Okay. So this kind of shows for those of you that aren't familiar with the Great Lakes, because we live here in Michigan.
Yeah, we're in Michigan. So.
You can actually see the mitten, but it's not showing you land. It's actually showing you the Great Lakes on this one. And this one is actually showing you the land. And so, but what is kind of fun is when you do find an image that you want to do and you have your transparent glass, it's really, it's just like a template. You just lay it down and then you just, follow it. So that's endless if whatever you want to do, if you want anything you can find, print, right? So, is going to be something that you can use to just kind of trace over. So
what did you use, a paintbrush for that, or?
I used a fine tip for this. And then the other thing, like what we said we were going to talk about a little bit, which I noticed because we talked about it earlier today, was I think it's called flooding, like what people do when they decorate those fancy cookies, like they'll put a line of the icing around the actual cookie outline, and then they just put in the thinner icing and it just kind of floods in the middle, but that outer border the outline keeps it from going anywhere. So and that's really what I did with this one, was I did the outline first, and then it just keeps that outline detail when you fill in the rest. So it was kind of fun to see that it was kind of like that. I thought, I don't really make.
You totally lost me on cookies.
I don't really make cookies
I was
like
just
that.
Cookies,
but I watch the cooking channel sometimes, and so I know that's what they do.
But I know exactly what you're talking about, because Val and I were talking about it earlier, and I don't have a picture of it, but I had done a piece for somebody, and it was a logo, like of a university, and it was a really pretty detailed, specific one, and someone asked me to do it like on a piece of glass that was like 3 inches by 4 inches, like just tiny. And the logo ended up being like 2.5 inches. And I was like, how the heck am I going to do that in glass, right? So I used the Glassline paints, and what I found was if you're using these tips, so they come with, they don't come with the tips. You have to purchase these tips separate, but these will fit on the tops of the bottles, and I'll show you how they work in a second. And that's how you can get this really fine line work. If you see some of the line work that's in here and here, it's all done with this. And like Val was mentioning, I just found out just from practice, I guess, that when you put an outline in first and let that dry, when you paint in here, it contains it, right? So it's not going to ooze out or go someplace you don't want it to go. As I mentioned earlier too, like after it dries, if you don't like how something looks, you can scrape it off, or you can wash it off even. You can wash the whole thing off. Since we're looking at the cat, I'm not picking on Daisy too much, but this is actually something that does happen sometimes with the paints. You see this little cracking that's occurring here. So sometimes if the paint's too dry, or in particular, I think if you apply it too thickly, it has a habit of cracking a little. But, in reality, that's happened to me plenty of times. You could just fill this back in and refire it, which is what usually I do. Just add a little bit more Glassline paint, refire it, and you'll never know that you even had those little cracks in it.
Yeah, I think it's forgiving. And
really
it's, that's the other part too, like you said. If you start something and you go, oh gosh, this is just awful. Guess how I know this? And you're doing it and you're going, oh, gee, what?
That's not
you just wipe it off. I mean, it's a little bit wasteful, but if you hate it, you're not going to want to finish it anyway. So, just start over. You can just wipe it right off. So,
Yeah, so I just screwed this one on. So again, it just really, so if you look at the tip, so they call these pens is how they refer to them. I'm not sure exactly why. They look like little bottles.
The bottles, yeah.
But they just have, it's just a smooth tip. And then this is threaded on the inside. So when you come in, you just screw it on, and since it's plastic, it'll catch it and just kind of put it on there. And then you want to just make sure, I think I had somebody already do this for me. Kaylee was shaking it just right. And then you can just come in and depending, now, a lot of times when you first come down, it'll do a big glob. So I usually have like a scrap piece of glass close by, and I'll put that on. And then when you come over, you can often get, like this one is really, really.
It's really liquidy.
It's really liquidy. It's probably a little too much liquidy.
Yeah.
Right? So.
Yeah. It's a little wet. But.
It's a little wet, but still, I mean, Val and I were talking about it's a great way to sign your work. You know, if you're looking at ways of trying to permanently sign your work, that's, you know, you can read it, right? Instead of just scratching it in with something or using an abrasive tool. This works actually pretty well.
Elaine is asking if my bottles are a little dry from non-use, can I just add water to them?
You bet. Yeah, that's what's really so nice about them, I think, is they're so easy to do. You know, even if you do it the night before or give it a few hours, is probably all it really takes. Just add some water to it.
Yeah, you'll have to let it kind of soak if they're really dry.
Yeah,
right? You'll have to let them sit
in.
for a little while,
Yep.
let that really soak in, and then start trying to shake them. But same thing I have to do with the bead release. You know, it's not ruined. It's just, you know, maybe all the water's evaporated, so you just have to reconstitute.
And it will. It just, you know, I mean, it just will. Like I said, once you open the bottles, that's pretty common. So don't be too surprised by that. I mean, they dry, depending on where you live, probably could be pretty quickly. Mm-hmm. Right?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so what about fiber paper?
Yeah, now the fiber paper technique. So, yeah, so
this one, you want me to get this one?
Yeah, grab that one. Let's show what it looks like.
Well, we don't know yet because we just fired it. We don't know. Well, the other use of these that you can actually do, which I think is kind of cute, is I may need.
Have you done the reveal yet?
No, I haven't even taken this off. It's stuck. See.
Oh, nice.
Is that I actually didn't paint the glass. I actually painted the fiber paper.
I've done that with thin fire.
And put this over the fiber. This is a little bit thicker fiber paper than what this was, like the 1/8 inch. But so then when you peel it off, and I have to, you know.
Oh yeah, you gotta take some of that off.
This will have to come off, but.
Some of the fiber, this is the 1/8 inch you said?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it sticks. So that's what fiber paper does, right? So, I mean, especially the 1/8 inch stuff will stick to the glass a little bit. And, I'll just take that off.
But do you have paper towel anywhere?
There's some
okay.
right
Let me
over
grab
there.
this.
Sorry.
Excuse me, I'll be right back. I'm just gonna.
We'll return shortly.
There you go, I'm back.
Carry on. So.
Yeah, there you go.
I'll entertain that.
But I just squirted a little water. So the other thing is, you know, it's fired in there, so I'm not really that concerned about.
Yeah, this is the back, right? So yeah, it's like.
Ta-da!
Beautiful.
Yeah, it's kind of cute, right?
Yeah, it is nice because you know, especially when you do these when it's on clear, that clear really kind of creates this nice sense of depth, and it makes it look shiny because the clear's on top. I'm using a paper towel, sorry, because I accidentally stuck my finger in the.
Oh, are you bleeding?
The stuff that I hit.
Oh no, I was going to say.
No, I stuck my thumb right in that.
Oh, in the paint.
In the paint.
Okay, so then you know, it depends on, you know, I don't know if you, I think that painting on this, you know, I don't feel like you're going to get as sharp a detail as if you're painting on the glass. But I kind of do like, you know, I do kind of like the muted sort of, you know, look and
it's a little more painterly.
Mm-hmm. And it makes me, I don't know, but I felt like I was able to shade it more, you know. I used a paintbrush, so, you know, I don't.
Yeah, this piece here is the same way. Oh, let me move my water bottle. This one was done on, as Kaylee was mentioning, the bullseye thin fire paper, if you're familiar with that. I painted the paper and then fused on top of it. So yeah, the backs look a little more dull because they pick up a little bit of fiber, but you know, it's the back. Who's going to see it? So this was 2 layers of clear, and then I just laid it onto the fiber paper that I had painted. And like, you know, Val was mentioning, I mean, if you're a painter or like to work that way, sometimes that's easier, you know, working on the paper than it is working on the glass because the paper has a tooth to it, so the paint grabs better, and you can, like Val said, you can mix better, I think, instead of, you know, the glass is so smooth and slick that everything just slides around sometimes when you're trying to paint it.
Yeah. So there's one other thing that I think that we could mention that you and I did talk about, and that has to do with the temperature that we're firing at.
Oh yeah, temperature.
And then the number of layers of glass we're using. So if you're like these, where we're thinking of, you know, putting them in a stained glass project, you don't really want to risk the outside lines. You know, you don't want to go so hot that one layer is going to pull in and distort. This is one layer, and when it goes that hot, I don't know if you can tell, but it was a pretty good rectangle. This was a rolled edge, so this edge was already like this, but this was pretty squared up. But because it was one layer and I went so hot, I went it to 1500, that one layer was molten to become, wanting to become the 2-layer thickness that fused glass wants to become when it's at that molten temperature. So therefore, the one layer, and I take it that hot, isn't necessarily going to keep your nice, clean, straight edges. So if you're going to use it in a stained glass piece, or you need that piece to stay the same size, then you're not going to want to go as hot. Or in my case, I didn't really care what happened here. I mean, I just wanted to keep my edges straight, so I put the second layer of glass underneath. So this is a firing of 2 layers, and but once again, this
Your ghost is one. Isn't it?
My ghost is one. Once again, this was the rolled edge, so it was already, but you can see that the corners, what happens when it's real telltale that the corners sort of start to flare out a little bit because they're kind of starting to pucker up. But anyway, so just know, and then you and I talked, and I think that the 1410 or whatever
1405, these were done.
Gives a really nice look, and that's going to keep your one layer nice and straight. And
For this one?
Yep, same thing.
Yeah.
And the B behind.
Yeah, I was thinking, this was 1405, and the kiln that I use, I could have gone a little cooler, I think. I am starting to get a hair thicker along the edge where, again, the plan is to foil this, right? So I cut these to fit the pattern. And so obviously, the fusers out there know that if we get it too hot, it's going to start distorting, and I don't want it to change the shape because I've already cut it, right? So, but it's not bad. I mean, it's fitting pretty good.
Yeah.
I got to grind a little bit on the tree. I just cut the tree this morning, so it doesn't quite fit. But
well, the other thing too with these, you could make like what they call part sheets.
Oh yeah, I forgot.
Because we did that one year. Remember, we did a bunch of those.
Yep.
And that would be just using one layer and just creating designs on it, and then fusing it. Even if you want to go to 1500, lose your straight edges or whatever, but won't matter because you're going to actually score and cut pieces out of the part sheet. So, I mean, that's another way of doing it too. So.
Yeah, kind of like making your own glass, right? So, that's a cool idea. We should have shown that.
Oh no, we were busy.
We were a lot. So I was thinking of one thing as I was looking around, and I just as a tip, speaking of the tip, right? The metal tip here is that one of the things that's really important is when you're done using this, you should clean it right away. Right, run it in some water. We around here will put it like in a little cup with water in it and let it soak in there. Because if the paint dries up in here, it's a bear to get out. Yeah. And what comes with the tips
I got one.
Yeah, oh, you got one? Yep.
Yeah. Just a little
head pin.
Glass pin.
Yep. So you can just come through and then poke it out. And
I was doing this at home too.
That helps too, actually.
To get the excess out, and then you still need to ream because those holes are tiny.
Yeah, the holes are really quite.
But sometimes there's also a little bit of residue in the silver cap itself, and this seemed to work pretty good to get out.
Yeah, I'm with you. I find the Q-tip works pretty well.
And then I rinsed them, too.
The tips, actually, we sell 2 different tip sets. This one they're all fine. So there's 3 that are exact same size, and they're, like as Val pointed, they're not much wider than the pin here. Then we sell another one has 3 different sizes in it, But even there, I mean, the difference between the fine and the widest one there's not a huge difference between them. So,
no, but I really like that variety.
Yeah, the variety is nice, right? So, because you can get different widths of line.
Yeah.
And the large is not large.
Yeah,
I mean, I think I was using the large.
Yeah, it's relative.
Because I don't think I could see the fine. Okay, so
right. I don't know what else about these. Oh, one other thing is nobody's asked this, but they're not transparent.
Oh,
I mean, they're technically opaque. Now, when you do them thin enough, they look sort of transparent. I mean, I think you could probably see it with the frog, right? So you see some light coming through it. Just because I know Daisy in particular didn't want to make it too dense and thick. I think the cat's a little thicker, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Yeah, the cat is
pretty
definitely
opaque,
a little thicker, right? So it's pretty opaque.
What about food safe?
Yeah, well, these don't contain any cadmium or lead, any of the bad stuff that they used to put in glazes. These do not.
Good.
So, yep.
Terry just missed the beginning of it. Yes, you do need to fire these in the kiln.
Yeah, that's the only well, I mean, that's the downside is you got to fire them in a kiln. So
Well, it's only a downside if you don't have a kiln.
and if you don't have a kiln,
We know where you can buy one.
Yeah. We're pretty sure we could probably
Well, and it's
recommend
or lots of people have friends, or you know, there's maybe ways around it, or it's maybe just not for you at this moment. But at least you know, it's like I said, it's out there, and it's sometimes things that people hesitate to spend a lot of money on some of these little bells and whistles when they're not really sure how they work. And I think these have a place in a studio. You know, like I said, if nothing more for eyeballs, you know, or holly berries, or you know, even things little minor details here and there. So
yeah, to me that's what I think about it. I mean, it's another way of personalizing your work, right? Doing your own unique stuff, whether it's words or images that you couldn't do probably almost any other way, right? I mean, there's no way you're cutting glass out that looks like this cat. So
no, not with the color.
Not all of it anyways, but.
Thomas says when he thins his paints, he always uses distilled water.
Oh, that's probably not a bad idea, right? I mean,
depending
I know
on your quality of water.
On your quality of water. Where I live, the water is so hard. It can be kind of
that's a good
can cause
tip.
a problem. Yeah.
We've got another question here. If you use some fritz and paint, can you fire all together, or do you have to do it in separate steps?
No, you can fire that all at once. So really it's a temperature thing. So like when you're firing things in the kiln, as long as all the components can be fired at a particular temperature, then sure, you can fire them, right? I mean, all the temperatures we're talking about are above what I would call a tack fuse. So, I mean, everything's all the frit will stick and you'll fuse it on.
So if you wanted the frit to be more coarse and have some texture to it, then you probably would want to do that last.
Yeah, you're right. I guess it just depends, right?
It just depends, or don't go, or go to 1400 and don't go, you know.
Well, I actually don't have a sample here, but I can tell you the lowest I've fired the paint is 1350. So, and it works. I mean, it totally works. Like I said, it has more of a
chalky.
That's probably a good way of putting it. It's certainly more of a matte, chalky kind of a look to it, but it stays on. I mean, it's permanent. It's not coming off at that temperature. So,
June is asking, is there a firing schedule that comes on the bottles?
Wow, that is a great question.
I doubt it. I don't think I've looked at the bottle. Let's look and see.
We can open one of the boxes.
Yeah, maybe in the because it does. We sell did you talk about this already? The individual bottles.
I think I said that, but
comes in.
Maybe I didn't say it.
Tropical colors, the cool colors. There is also a rainbow mix.
Well, let me tell you, it does on the bottle. It does say best fired at 1500 degrees. So basically, your firing schedule is just going to be based on the size of your glass, regardless of, you know what I mean. If you're doing a 16-inch circle, then your firing schedule needs to be adjusted to the size of your piece of glass. So, and then you decide if you want to go all the way to 1500 or not, because we've said, anyway from 1350 up to 1400, this stuff will cure. So, don't you think that's advice? I don't think we can give you a exact firing schedule other than like they do on the bottle, saying that 1500 is.
Yeah. I mean, they say on the back also, they say maybe fired lower or higher depending on your desired results. So I can tell you, for me, I think probably Val feels the same way. I fire it based on what I want the glass to look like, right? Usually whatever I'm fusing it to, right? So if I don't want the glass to move much, then I'm going to go lower temperature. If I don't care, if I want nice round smooth edges, then I'll go hotter. So
yeah,
would you agree?
Yeah, no, exactly, which is nice because there are some products that are low fire and you have to really be careful. But apparently, this one you don't need to be careful, so you can do whatever. But yeah, I think that's good advice. Is just to, use your firing schedules that are, what you need for whatever piece or size you're making. So.
Yeah, I don't know if you want to show this, Kaylee, real quick as we're wrapping up here. Dries. But you see it as it dries, it lightens in color, right? So you can see this part of my name is lightening, getting lighter. And but it'll dry, deep black once it's fired. It just looks that way. Orange. Yeah, you can see the orange where it's real thin here. It's drying. Or these dots that I made a little while ago, they look like they're, darker color in the center, but only because it's a little thicker there and it's still wet, right? So, but it'll all lighten up in color once it fires.
Well, June says, thanks. That was a lot of help.
Hopefully. Oh, good.
Whoa.
Well, hope it will kind of open the door for some people to not be, too
afraid to use them or.
afraid to spend the money and think, oh, this isn't going to work. And so,
or what we hear a lot of times is people are like, oh, mine all dried up and they're ruined or something. And no, they're not, right? And you can just add some water to them, bring them back to life.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
Well, we'll probably be back in a couple of weeks. That's what we're thinking. And as always, if
Send
you have
those
any kind of
suggestions.
idea about something you'd like to see us do or talk about, feel free to reach out to us. You can send us a message on Facebook or Instagram, or you can always email us at
now you're showing
Facebook
off. I know. Now you're
delphiglass.com.
just showing off.
All right, we'll see you guys
I'm
in 2
faking it.
weeks.
See you guys.
Thanks.